Okay, so thank you for being here first and foremost. I really appreciate it. We try to do this once a month, and I got to get used to this camera over here. Sorry. We've got online folks now, which I'll get everybody introduced. But this is a pool school. So if you don't know me, I'm Bill Watson. I'm the service manager for Presidential Pools. I've been here almost 16 years. Next month, I'll be here 16 years. Me and Ken came up with this class just simply for just a little bit of education. You know, I'm not a stand-up speaker. I'm just a guy in the field trying to take care of business. But, you know, we thought it was a great idea to bring you guys in and just go over the equipment. And I kind of give you the best realization stuff I can. That's why I bring everything in here so I can really show you in detail. You know, the biggest thing for us is we want you as customers to just feel a little more comfortable with the equipment you have. It's a lot of stuff, you know what I mean? And when you walk back there, you go, wow, what do I do? You know what I mean? So if I could teach you, again, I'll probably go over a lot of things and you may already know or you don't know. If there's something I don't go over with you, just catch me out after the class. I'll be happy to go in detail with a total different scenario or something I didn't go over. Or really anything you have. If you just have a question and you have, you know, or you're having trouble with something, just get with me. I'll be happy to walk you through it. So this class is pretty much, I'm going to go over the pumps, the salt cells, the remotes, and how to operate them. I'm going to break down the filter just to kind of show you how the filter cleans. Just that, you know, again, there's so many ideas and opinions out there of what to do. I'm just going to give you mine because I've been doing it a long time, and I'll show you some shortcuts. But again, just because I say it today, there's probably 10 other ways to do it, but I'm going to give you what my experience is because that's the only thing I really can give you, you know, is something that I've been through. So without further ado, I appreciate you guys being here. I just want to recognize, do we have our online, Ken? I just want to recognize the online people. We've got Angela from Litchfield Park. Thank you, Angela, for being here. We've got Brady Klein from Mobile. That's not Alabama, is it? No, I'm kidding. We've got David from Oracle. David, thank you. Georgiana Fluckiger from Chandler, it looks like. We've got James Rogers from Goodyear. Joy Jaramillo from Robert Richmond. He's at his house from home. And we've got Mr. Romerl, who I know very well. He's out of Paradise Valley, and he's in Calgary right now listening to us and looking at us. So, Mr. Romerl, we'll be at your house Thursday. Anyway, so thanks for being here. I appreciate it. So I'm going to just start off just with the basics, and I'm going to start with the pump. The biggest thing about this pump, I would say the biggest thing or biggest mistake there is out there is just simple lack of basic maintenance. Not saying anybody, you know, doesn't or does do. But the thing is there's just a few key parts that if you take care of on a weekly and you continue doing it, your equipment will last a heck of a lot longer. And honestly, probably 90% of pool problems stem from the basic scenarios of basic maintenance type things. So what I mean by that is, you know, a lot of pump problems. Okay, the biggest pump problem, because these pumps nowadays, they're just bulletproof. The biggest problem with pumps that we have is dirty lid areas, dirty O-rings, you know, a lot of debris around these O-rings, just simple, small dirt that lands on the very top between the O-ring so it can't seal properly. When the pump can't seal properly, it doesn't flow properly, and then it just affects everything. So real quick, I'm sure you guys have all been through this, and I know it's kind of basic, but I just wanted to go through it with you. On the pump baskets, I highly recommend everybody clean your pump basket once a week, okay? Now, here's the biggest thing is if you go once a week to your basket, you pull the basket up and there's leaves coming out of it, you know what I mean? You're two-handing it, clean it twice a week. It's just that simple. But 99% of your pools, once a week will do the trick for you, okay? Of course, make sure the pump is off, and everybody knows how to turn their pump on and off at this point, right? So basically, turn your pump off. If you feel you're not sure that if the pump may come back on while you're taking something apart, there's a breaker system, and basically what you want to do is you just want to turn the breaker off to the actual pump itself. That'll shut everything down and give you ample time to take this lid off, okay? With this lid here, you're basically going to twist the lid a quarter turn. One tool I would highly recommend in getting is a rubber mallet. Believe it or not, ladies, for you for sure, a rubber mallet does wonders, okay? And the reason I say this is when these lids are on here, they can be pretty dang tight. I don't know if you've tried to do it, but taking this lid off can sometimes be a booger. So a rubber mallet works really well. You just tap on the sides, quarter turn, pops this lid right up and out, okay? So now you have your lid off, okay? You take your basket out. The beautiful thing about the basket is there's only one way the basket will go in. You'll never get the lid on if the basket's not right, okay? So you've got the lid off. All you're looking for, first and foremost, is just this O-ring here, okay? So you've got the basket out. You've cleaned the basket, okay? You put the basket back in. Your next thing is just making sure that this O-ring, I highly recommend if you got the time, just take the O-ring out. It's very simple. Take the O-ring with a dry or even a wet top. Make sure it's nice and clean. That's the biggest thing you can do. The O-ring's clean. Make sure the very top of this lid is clean. This is where most people make the mistake is they got this nice, perfect, pristine, clean O-ring, and then they're sitting it right on a bunch of dirt. You know what I mean? Me, I'm kind of a picky person. It's got to be clean both ways. So what I would say is just take a quick rag, wipe this top, make sure it's nice and clean. You've got your O-ring nice and clean. You've got the lid nice and clean. That's all you need. The second part to this is just a little bit of lubricant. Okay, we gave you that little tube of lube, just a very small amount. You're not sealing the O-ring by using lube. You're just maintaining the O-ring. So the O-ring has some elasticity to it, and it doesn't get brittle and crack and so forth. So I would probably say O-rings last you 3 years, 3 to 5 years if you're taking care of it. Again, if the O-ring's not kind of rubbery and it doesn't look good, you'd be better off spending the $8 to $12. Throw it away, get your brand new one, put it back in. Okay. Any questions here? Pretty simple. And then again, get your lid back on, quarter turn to the right. Okay. Again, I would recommend if you don't think you've got this nice and tight, rubber mallet, tap, 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 tighten it even more. Okay. It definitely will save your hands for sure. Any questions on this? Pretty simple. Okay. The next thing is, this is a big thing that I see a lot of, and this is what's called an automated valve here. Okay? What this automated valve does, and does anybody have a pool spa? No pool spas? You got some pool spas. Okay. Whenever you go from pool to spa and or water feature, anybody have water features here? Okay, good. When you hit the button for spa or you hit the button for water feature, what happens is the pump turns on and then this valve needs to operate. And this is an automatic valve. There's no maintenance to it for you. This is simply to take a valve in one direction and turn it to the right direction, wherever you need to be. So for example, if it's a water feature, your water feature is off. When you tell it to turn on, it rotates open. When you turn it off, it rotates back. The biggest problem with this is there's a little switch on the very corner here, okay? I don't know how, but they always get in the off position, okay? I don't know how. There's a guard around it. It's like there's a little guy, you know, turning things on and off. So the only reason I bring this up, if you turn your water feature on and you can hear your pump coming on, but you don't see your water feature coming on, go out to this box, okay? Find this little switch. And if you flip this switch and this valve starts to rotate, there's your problem. Okay? Then you simply turn your water feature back off. Okay? Turn it back on to make sure that this now starts to rotate. Does that make sense to everybody? Super simple. So you with the spot on, and you guys in the back, if for some reason you turn your spot on and all of a sudden it's overflowing, consistently overflowing, you know there's a problem with the valve because one of the valves haven't turned. That means just one of the valves have turned. That makes sense to you because with a pool spot, you need two valves to turn. You need suction to turn, and you need the return to turn. That makes sense. So instead of sucking out the pool, full, you're now water in the spot, returning to the spot. That's why it stays level when you're in the spot. Okay? Now, if for example you turn your spot on, and instead of it overflowing, it drains completely down. Right? That means that you're sucking the water out of the spot.
Oh, are you not done over there?
Does that make sense? One of these valves is your problem every single time. Okay? So just make sure that when you turn your water feature on, or you turn your pool spot, or spot pool on, both of these valves will go. If you just have a water feature, you won't have that. Okay? So keep an eye out for this little off switch. I'm telling you, it's 99% of the problem. Okay?
There's 3 positions on those, right?
3 positions. Basically, it's just a simple way to think of it. If it's in the off position, flip it in any direction. Okay? And you'll figure out, okay, if I turn my water feature off and my water feature's on, right? If I've turned it off but it's still on, you need to flip this the opposite direction. Does that make sense? If the water feature's on and it's off, you still flip this the opposite direction, okay? But 99% of them somehow land in the off position, and that's all it is, okay? Super simple on the valve. No maintenance to it, you don't have to worry about it, but just make sure that this switch is in one of the positions. Okay, and that'll save
You should never turn that handle.
Never turn this handle. Never worry about this handle. This is completely automatic. Okay.
Can you damage it if you turn that?
You wouldn't be able to because there's a cam in here. You'd really have to wrench on it. And if you was to snap it, you'd be really putting some pressure on it for sure. But you can't break it. So there's the valve. Any questions on the valve? Pretty simple stuff. Again, it's all small stuff, but if you don't know about it, you don't know how to troubleshoot it, and you know how things happen. They happen right before a party on a Saturday or Sunday, right? It never happens Monday through Friday. That's my experience anyway. So I'm just going to go over a couple remotes really quickly with you. Does anyone have this little remote here? Beautiful. Okay. This is just a standard 4-function remote. And basically it's just an on and off. Very, very simple on, off, on, off, on, off. You have 4 functions, okay? If for some reason this remote stops working for you, the first thing I want you to do is make sure the actual control panel, the tan control panel that you have on the wall that says Easy Touch, everybody's got one of those, right? First off, open that panel up and make sure that the control panel screen says auto. That's your home screen, okay? That's first step. Second step would be on the wall, you're going to have this mounted. There is 2 screws up under here if this does not slide up like so, okay? There's 2 screws at the very bottom, then this will slide right off, no problem. So you've got your antenna, okay? So what you want to do now is, with the remote in hand, you're out by the equipment with the antenna, there is a little blue button on this actual antenna. What you would do is you're going to press this button 1 time. As soon as you press and release, you're going to hold the bottom 2 buttons on the remote, okay? What that does is when you press this button, it sends another signal out to you for a brief period of time. While you've pressed that button and you've released it, you come over here to your antenna or your remote, right by the antenna, and press and hold the bottom 2 buttons, okay? That will accept the new frequency and get you back in shape. Again, if that doesn't work after a couple times, you give us a call. We'll come out. Maybe it's a bad remote, maybe it's a bad antenna, but at least it gives you that quick option to say, hey, it could just be a frequency issue. Frequencies break for any reason, a ground fault sometimes the power's been off for a little too long. There could be all kinds of reasons behind it. So press the button on the antenna. Once you're done, press and hold the 2 buttons on the remote. That will give you a new frequency for your remote, and you should be back in shape if that does all the trick for you, okay? Any questions here with this? So far, so good. All right? Am I going too fast? You doing all right? All right. So now our next thing is we have our other remote here. And if you don't have that little one, you've got this one. I love this remote. It's really user-friendly in my eyes. I think it's a great remote. Again, everything's digital on the face here. You can control your schedules. You can control your pump speeds. You can control just about anything you have on your control panel on this remote, okay? The one thing I wanted to show you that most people don't know, and it took me a minute to figure it out, the up arrow, you have a little up and down arrow next to this remote here. The up arrow, when the screen is in auto, okay, let me try to set that up. So you've got your screen. In the very top left, it should say auto, okay? That's your home screen. That's where you always need to be. When you're in auto, the very top arrow has a little P in it, okay? That's low speed. So if you're looking for your low speed, that's how you turn your low speed on, okay? Which will also engage your salt system, okay? Any other time when this menu is not in auto, this is just an up arrow. It's just that simple. So in auto, this is your pool, low speed on. When you're in the menu, this is just an up arrow, up and down. Okay? Any questions on this remote at all? Super simple, super easy. Again, you've got batteries in the back. I recommend a good Energizer battery. Try not to use the rechargeables are probably pretty good. I think those are as good as anything. But you kind of get that Walmart real cheap batteries. You might as well spend the extra couple bucks, get you a proper battery. It's going to last twice as amount of time, and you should have a lot less troubles.
Bill, I don't have either remote. I look at my phone. That's
Perfect.
okay.
You have basically the screen logic, and that's just a different scenario, which is really cool. I like the screen logic. I have it at my home. I have no other remote. That's the only operation I have. With the screen logic, if anybody have or does not have the iPhone interface, let me tell you about the iPhone interface. Super cool. What the iPhone interface does is it basically takes away these remotes, and you are able to operate your pool remotely Wi-Fi from within your Wi-Fi range in your home, or you can be anywhere in the world. Mr. Romerl is in Calgary right now. He's a VIP customer of ours, and he operates his screen logic straight from his home, and he'll be able to see what's going on with his equipment and his pool at any time when he is in Canada rather than here. So it's a really good option. If you rent homes down here and you're out of the state or out of the country, you can operate things, you can change schedules. It's really cool. And the new here very soon, there's a new app that you can download. You'll be able to change your schedules and speeds from your iPhone instead of just the on and off. That's the only cool thing that's up and coming with that is you'll be able to do everything from the iPhone rather than the desktop only, you know what I mean? Now you're going to be able to do everything from iPhone and or Droid. So if you have a Droid, it works exactly the same. They're called Screen Logics. They're just under $600. We come out, we install a small base software that goes into your computer or the back of your router. It submits a frequency from your equipment to your router, and then basically out of your router to your phones. So it works really, really well. So any problems there? You guys enjoy it?
Love it.
It's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah. I figured my wife out and turn things on when she's sitting up.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what's really cool is I've got a customer, and he just gives me I've got his password now locked in. But what's really cool for me is I can lock, as many codes as I want. So if I have, let's say, Mr. Rommel and he's got an issue, I can tap right into his system and say, hey, something's going on here. Let me try and fix it without anyone even having to come out. I'm able to get you up and running right from my home or my computer. So it's really a cool thing. Again, it's called Screen Logic. If you have any other questions about it, we'll be happy to address that. Any questions so far? We doing all right?
One question on the remote.
Yeah, on the remote.
The pool low button.
Yes.
When you first turn it on, there's a faint little blue light that comes on with it.
Right.
But later on, after it, the remote times out, and then you activate it again, that light never comes on, even though it's running.
Is that
normal? Or?
Yeah, that's normal. That's probably the first initial press. And once you initially turn it on, if it's already been told to turn on and you hit it again, you must be having the new remote because the new remotes only have that. These ones don't. So if you're seeing the light there,
in November. So.
Yeah, it shouldn't affect you
that
much.
would be the new
As long as it's turning on.
I know everything works fine. I just wanted to.
Yeah, the way you would just confirm that everything's working is when you press that P button, under auto, you should see the word pool. and that lets you know or represents the low speed for you. All right. Any questions there? We're all good? Okay. Salt cell. Super important on the salt cell. Everybody have one of these, I'm sure. A phenomenal device. And the reason why I say it, there's a lot of speculation out there about salt pools. I personally like salt pools, but the biggest thing about salt pools that most people don't do is they forget about the cell, you know? And we've done it, I've done it. And the biggest thing we have to make sure of, if you have this unit, that you're cleaning it properly, okay? Now, the way to clean this salt cell, all right, the best form of cleaning that I can give you would be a 3 parts water to 1 part muriatic acid, okay? Now, I highly recommend anytime you get muriatic acid, get it from a pool supply store. You're generally between 28 and 35%. If you go to like a Lowe's or Home Depot, you're going to be in the 12 to 18%. So for matter of fact, you're just simply going to use more acid. You know what I mean? So you think you're saving a couple bucks at Lowe's, you're actually just going to end up spending the same amount of money because you have to buy more. So I would highly recommend get your acid from a pool supply store, or from Presidential Pools here very soon. Products here. So basically what I'm trying to get at is the first thing you want to do is get your mix. I recommend, you know, a 5-gallon bucket, or even a small tub bucket, however you want to do it. And it's just a basic 3 to 1. If 3 to 1 parts or water to acid, or acid to water does not work for you, okay, then make it a little stronger. I'm just giving you the basics to start off at, but if it's not cleaning the calcium off really well or breaking it down, you know, get it a little bit more aggressive. Use a little bit more acid, a little less water, okay? For starters, what I do is there's 2 ways to do it. They actually make a cleaning kit. It looks just like this. You can get it online. I believe we have some here for sale for you. But basically, it's just a cleaning kit. You're going to spin these off, okay? On both sides, you're going to pull the cell out of the plumbing, and then there's a cleaning kit like this that threads just right on it. It looks identical to this. Okay? Then what you'll do is lean this wherever you can. I normally lean mine on, you know, like the back wall type thing. I'll take my mix, my water and acid mix, and I pour it right inside the salt cell. Okay, that prevents all the water and everything getting around here. It keeps everything neutralized inside the actual salt cell, and it works a lot better because now you've got that mix completely on the actual cells rather than floating around it. And I'll explain that. So basically, you want to leave that in. I would probably say leave it in to 5 to 10 minutes. Pour it out, rinse, take a hose, rinse thoroughly. Don't use any tools or anything to scrape the calcium out. If you really have to dig something out of here, skewer, they call skewer sticks, the skewers, right? Skewer, wooden skewers, or even like a popsicle stick, something that's not metal will scratch because there is a fine coating on these plates. But if you really got to dig something out of there, just a skewer or just a wooden popsicle stick, just something to kind of get it out. I've had the point where there's something been jammed in there and I'm digging at it, you know what I mean? But just use something that's wood that won't scratch it, and then you'll be in good shape. I would recommend at least checking this every month. You may not have to clean it. It all depends on your water chemistry, you know what I mean? But if you're looking at this once a month and you're, you know, every time you're kind of having to clean it, if you possibly can, make it twice a month. It's really up to you, but each pool is totally different, you know, so I may say, hey, on your pool, you could do it once a month. Some pools, you're high in calcium, your water's a little harder, Buckeye area, you know what I mean? You may have to do it twice a month.
Is there salt actually in there?
No,
Okay.
It's actually calcium. And what it is the sodium, as the sodium's in the water, it goes to the bottom of the salt cell. There's a small low voltage electrode that comes in contact with that sodium, creates a chlorine gas. As the chlorine gas comes out of the top, you now have a residual chlorine, okay? Once the water goes back, it reconnects together back in sodium. So it just has this recoding, recycling scenario.
So how do you know how to put salt?
You should never have to add salt to your pool, okay? because sodium doesn't evaporate, for one. Here's the biggest thing I would do. Whenever these get dirty, this is electronic. If electronics aren't perfect, it's going to give you a faulty reading. If anytime you think you should add sodium or salt to your pool, get an independent test. Go to the pool supply store, get an independent test, find out if this is reading, let's say 2,700, and it's saying low salt. Go to the pool store, get take your water sample, pool store, they'll give you an independent test, and then you can say, okay, the water really is 2,700. That's something when you can add the salt, okay, to get it into the 34, because 3,400 parts per million is your ideal range, okay? So if, for example, you do have plenty of salt, the one thing you benefited is you don't need to add salt, right? Because the salt's already there. So the biggest thing at that point is you just need to clean the salt cell, okay? And again, you can do it with the kit. I highly recommend getting this. It keeps all the acid inside the cell. Or if you don't want to buy that, get you a 5-gallon bucket, make the water mix, to 3 to 1. Then you're going to drop the whole cell, okay, right into the bucket with water. The only thing about it, it gets everywhere. Total waterproof, won't hurt a thing. But for me, I kind of like keeping things contained a little bit. I don't like the water everywhere. It's just a personal preference. Doesn't matter. Doesn't hurt a thing though. Okay. The only thing I would hand tighten. I would never get a wrench on this. Hand tighten only. But one thing I would do, get a nice snug hand tight on it, and then kick your pump on, and then always make sure, let it run for a little bit. Make sure this isn't leaking. You know what I mean? Don't ever hand tighten this on and then walk away. Always keep that pump on. Make sure, because if it's loose and it's midnight and it kicks on and now you've got a leak, you know what I mean? So any questions on cleaning it?
How much liquid goes in there?
I'd probably say maybe a half gallon, somewhere around there. But basically, like I said, what I do is I rinse it out. I let the muriatic acid break the calcium down. I'll pour it out, take a hose, rinse it through again, take a look at it, see if there's any calcium. Looks like little cornflakes, let's say, and it just builds up inside the plates, okay? So you want to try and clean that. Again, every pool's different, but the key is if this cell is clean, it's operating efficiently for you, it's giving you the most accurate reading, and it's doing what it's supposed to do, and that's create chlorine for you. The dirtier this cell goes, gives you faulty readings, it inefficients the amount of chlorine that you get out, and basically it's breaking down the lifespan of this cell. That's the big, folks, you're not going to believe me. I've taken one of these cusps off, and you could add some dye and dig it. You could eat it. It was a snow cone. I could barely get the cell out. You know what I mean? I'm serious when I say this. And it's because they didn't realize they have to clean it. Nothing wrong. We got it cleaned up, back in shape, and hey, we high five when we're done. We won't let that happen again. The only problem is that's what happens. What happened is we got the call, hey, my chlorine is not, my pool's not looking as crisp and clear as it used to. And it was just that the cell was so caked up it couldn't create chlorine anymore. So I highly recommend, this is not cheap, folks. You got to make sure you maintain it, okay? Yeah.
What's the proper way to dispose of
acid?
Yeah, when you're done with that.
I haven't figured that out. And here's my thing. I have rocks. And here's what I do. Maybe the bad thing, maybe a good thing. For one, you can't put acid in your trash or anything like that. That's a no-no. I just pour it in my rocks and I highly water it. That's all I do. That's it. What else do you put the water? Or you can put that water right back in your pool. The only thing about it is it's going to pour the calcium that you've cleaned off. You're going to have bugs and debris in there. And then you're going to drive your pH really low because you're adding muriatic acid. So your pool may not need that acid. You know what I'm saying? So you'd be better off just pouring it in the rock somewhere. Make sure you water it thoroughly when you're done. But I really don't have the right answer for you because that's what I do. Hopefully I'm not against it.
I took mine out for the first time last week. It was so spotless inside.
Yeah, good.
I didn't have to go through that process.
Perfect.
I was ready to. I went bought everything.
Cool.
Bought the cap and all that.
Yeah.
Everybody asked me, so I'll ask you. if that's a basic part of maintenance, why don't we get that little inexpensive cap as part of the
I
pool?
would love to do that. I really would. There's so many things. It's like the in-floor head tool. I'd like to give you a tool. There's just a cost to it, is what it is. Hopefully I can squeeze the manufacturers one day for hooking this up with the cell, but it's just an all cost. You know what I mean? If
You
you
go to
break
the pool
that,
spa place and like, you should have got that with your cell. That should
Yeah.
have come with it.
not honest to God, there's not one manufacturer that gives you a clean
And that's
cell.
actually the first place I went, they didn't have any. The second store I went, I told them what I wanted. And
Yeah.
said, you must have presidential pools.
See, they were thinking.
And no, because apparently other pool companies do give you the cap.
Really?
Yeah, that's what this guy said.
Well,
He
I
said,
gotta
I've
talk to
only,
that fella, man.
everybody who comes in to buy one, I asked them who installed their pool, and he
Nah.
said they almost all say presidential.
I would love to. Trust me, I would love to. But there's other ways to clean it. If that was the only way, I would say, yeah, I'd probably give it to you, no question. But that's not the only way to clean it. You can clean them in the bucket just the same way.
Yeah.
But
So you got to make a lot more acid.
maybe one day you got to make a lot more acid. Any questions on the cell cleaning? Again, it's just a maintenance thing, and I highly recommend, especially with you, sir. If it's not clean, what happens? You go, it's going to be clean. That's the one time it's going to be dirty for you. So I just keep up on that routine maintenance.
This might be a dumb question.
It's never done.
If we don't have a salt pool, then this is not applicable to what you
Correct.
Good.
You wouldn't
Okay.
even have this.
Because, like I said, we're brand new owners of
Yeah.
a pool, and all this equipment. We're like,
And let me quickly explain salt pool. The reason I like salt pools, for one, it's a softer feeling water. It's not as aggressive to your skin. Okay, the salt system has a consistent amount of chlorine that's being made for you. Now, while we're on the salt cell, it's just to break it down for you. It's all based off percentage. Okay, so for example, if in the winter your percentage is lower because you need less chlorine. As things start to heat up, your percentage on your chlorinator needs to continue raising to create more chlorine. Does that make sense to everybody? So you should be consistently throughout the year changing the percentage of chlorine output on the cell. The way to do it, the best way to do it is test your water weekly, see what kind of chlorine residue you have. You should be between about 1.5 and 3.0, 2 to 3, let's say, 2.0 to 3.0. If you don't have that amount of chlorine, you increase your percentage up. I recommend 10% each time. Other people will tell you other things. This is my recommendation. It's 10% increments. There's no sense in going, I have too much, and now I have too little, and now I have too much. You might as well just go up and down by 10%. So, for example, if you test your water and you don't have the right amount of chlorine, go up 10%. Let it run for a couple days, test it again until you get to that 2.0, 3.0 maximum, 1.5 minimum chlorine, right around 2.0 is where you need to be. The biggest thing I find is we test the water. I test people's water and their chlorine is through the roof, 5, 6, 7, even 10. The biggest problem with that is the longer and more that's producing chlorine, the less lifespan you have, okay? Real quick, if this is set at 50% of chlorine, okay? Let's say this is set at 50% of output and you're running 10 hours a day. That's working 5 of the 10 hours. It's 50%. Okay, so it's all off the run time. So again, you're running 10 hours a day. Your pool's running for 10 hours. This is set at 50%. The chlorinator is only working 5 of those 10 hours. Okay, so that's how you figure that out. Okay, and then again, up or down 10%. So you want to be into the 80s, even 90s, maybe even 100, depending in the summer. And then you want to trickle back down to the 40s, 20 range, depending on the size of the pool, of course, and if you're heating it or not heating it. But you see what I'm saying? You need to be consistently adjusting that chlorine level, because if you leave it for the summer months and it's winter and you don't need it, you're just simply overworking the cell, and before you know it, your cell's going to be up, and it's all relative to time. It's hours. So it's not, will it last you 5 years? It just depends on what percentage you have it at. If you have it at 40%, it could last you 7 years. But if you have it at 90% all the time, it's probably going to last you a couple, 2, 3 years. Does that make sense to everybody? So, any questions so far?
On the salt cell, I mix it in the salt cell. I mean, I put in so much water that I just add the acid. Is there an issue with doing it that way?
The only issue is you never want to put water and acid. You always want to make sure acid goes into water. Yeah.
I
And
just
again,
screwed up if I'm adding it.
no, that's totally fine.
Now I haven't got a big bucket of acid water in there.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, you can fill it about 3/4 of the way and pour you a cup of acid in. Yeah, I'm just giving you a 3-to-1 mix because that's the general, but you can use a cup of water and a cup of acid if that's what does it to you. But just remember, the more aggressive that water is, that means more acidic, more acid, the more wear on the cell it can do. Okay, so you you want to play that kind of borderline. You don't want to put too much acid in, but you don't want to put not enough in because then you're not cleaning it right. Okay, one big thing that you will see in the pools, if you have a lot of calcium, has anyone seen in the pool it looks like little snowflakes? You haven't seen that yet? You have seen that. What that is the calcium is on the cell. It's getting broken away off of the cell as the water moves through it. Okay, and that calcium just gets ground up throughout the pipes, and then you see little snowflakes in the pool. You're not in Sedona or Payson. It's calcium. It's not snow. But that's the perfect, representative for it. It looks like snow. And if you're seeing that in the pool, your problem is the salt cell and the water chemistry. And that's a whole different ballgame. But I'll explain that. So, in other words, try and clean this cell. If you're checking it monthly, perfect. You know what I mean? And then you'll kind of figure out. I always say, every pool is totally different. Go off of what your pool does. You know what I mean? If you check this basket and it's jam-packed with leaves every week, twice a week, you know what I mean? If you clean this cell once a month, it doesn't look too bad. Just keep with the once a month. If you go to the cell once a month and it's jammed with calcium, address your water, but then, check it more frequently. That's all I'm saying. Okay? Any questions so far? Cleaning the salt cell, maintaining the salt cell, and then the calcium. The biggest thing for you is everybody who owns a pool, okay? Everybody in the pool business will tell you, if you own a pool, you're going to have calcium on your tile. You're going to have calcium on the cell. You're going to have it on the filters and on the interior. Probably they're right, but let me just tell you something. If you address your chemistry correctly, and you really got to be an at-home testing, type person, you can prevent calcium. It's that simple. You can never have a waterline tile line around your pool. You can prevent the calcium on the bowls and on the water features. It's preventable. It's very hard to do in this state. That's all I'm saying. But if you want to keep your calcium hardness, should be between 200 and 400. The problem is it's 200-300 out of the tap. It's already, getting too high. And then as your pool evaporates in the summer at almost 12 inches a month, 12 inches of water evaporation in 1 month. That's a lot of water, right? You're evaporating the water. You're filling your pool more frequently. The more frequently you fill your pool, the higher the calcium comes in because the water has calcium hardness in it. So the problem is you end up draining your pool more periodically. Even just a couple inches at a time will lower that calcium hardness. But there's 2 keys to it. Keeping the pH between 7.2 and 7.8 and keeping your calcium hardness between 200 and 400. If you can do that, I promise you'll never see calcium in your pool. 7.2 and 7.8 and 200 to 400 on your calcium hardness. Now here's the thing is the tough part about it is, one, we've got hard water coming in. So it's consistently getting hard on us, right? It's consistently going up. The pH, as soon as the sun pops up in the air, you know what I mean? Our pH starts to creep up, right? And I'm going to tell you this, with sodium pools, salt water, you tend to have a smidge higher pH, okay? It's a natural occurrence. So what happens is you've got this pool that's got a little high pH, okay? And you've got a little hard water. That's the perfect breeding ground for calcium hardness, okay? So if you can keep that down. Here's the biggest problem that most of us, including myself, do. We go out to our pools, we check it on a Monday, every Monday. We go, wait 1 week, check it on a Monday. Oh, it's high. We put the acid in. Monday again. Oh, it's high again. The problem is we're not stopping it from getting high. Okay. What I mean, this is pH. Okay. So what I recommend is whatever you're putting in a week, split that. Okay. And so allow that pH to go from 7.4, wherever it is, to 7.8. Then you want to put the acid in and go back down. So instead of this happening, you want this happening. Does that make sense? So you're addressing the pH more frequently a week rather than letting it get to the high area. Then you're addressing it, then it goes to normal, then it goes back to high, then it's normal. You don't want it in that high range. You want to keep it here. So you want to keep this happening, not this happening. Does that make sense to everybody? I'm trying to give you the basic layman's scenario. But if you can check your pH more frequently, add muriatic acid more frequently, your pH will be more in line. And the biggest thing that you should know about pool chemistry is not the chlorine, it's the pH and alkalinity are the two most important chemicals you can keep an eye on. Chlorine, all it does, the reason why everybody's so, why chlorine has got so important is because when you put chlorine in your pool, it makes the pool look better, right? But let me tell you is, if you have a right pH, you keep your pH in check properly, it'll prevent buildup. It will allow your chlorine to do its job. Chlorine can come out and go, hey, the pH is great. I'm going to kill all this algae. Okay. Anytime I have a pool that's really, really green, I pour in a lot of liquid chlorine. But the biggest thing you want to pour in is get that pH straight first, then hit it with chlorine. That pool will turn around in a heartbeat for you. Okay. So that's the biggest key out there is keep your alkalinity and your pH in check. It'll allow everything else to do what it's supposed to do, and it will benefit the overall look of the pool. One other thing I can tell you too, if you're ever brushing the pool down, always brush the tile line, right where that water sits on the tile. Key, absolute key, because that's where all the junk sits. That's where all the everything's evaporating from that point out. So that's where everything sits, right on that water line. So make sure you're brushing and scrubbing that water line. Pumice stones work well if you see it. But just generally, if you can keep your chlorine or you can keep your chemicals in line, you won't have to deal with. Very tough though, very, very tough. Okay, any questions so far? We're all right?
What do you, if your pH is creeping, not pH, alkalinity is creeping up? What do you
Muriatic acid lowers that. Real quick.
Not pH, the
alkalinity. Alkalinity and pH rise together generally. You add the muriatic acid in, it lowers them together, okay? The only thing is every now and then you're gonna have a pool that they go together, you put the acid in, they drop together, and then only the pH rises back up, okay? So you gotta be careful with that because what happens is when you put the acid in again to address the pH, this goes down, but then this goes down even farther. Does that make sense? It's kind of tricky, and I'll have to go more in depth with our chemical one, but just keep an eye out for the alkalinity and pH. Majority of the time, they're both going to come up together. When you put the acid in to address the alkalinity, it also addresses the pH. Or if you're doing the pH, it addresses the alkalinity. Same chemical, lowers both, but two different chemicals raises individually. Does that make sense? So acid will lower pH and alkalinity, but if you need to raise pH and alkalinity, one's soda ash and one's sodium bicarbonate. Again, it's a chemistry.
What if, like mine, the pH is okay.
Yep.
Because I've been putting in the muriatic acid.
But your alkalinity is
in the
low.
last couple of weeks, the alkalinity has gone up.
Up.
pH is still good.
Okay, so if you're how far is your pH?
It's in the high end. It's about 7.4.
I would add muriatic acid. And then what you got to check for, you're bringing your alkalinity down, but you're knocking your pH down with it. Now, if this starts to come down and level off, you've cracked it, right? If not, you start to see the pH plummet, and that's probably a rare scenario. But if you start to see that alkalinity come down right to the normal range, but you see your pH drop lower, you would need to get what's called soda ash, and that would raise that pH. So there's some independency there, but both of them primarily in most pools will go up together. You put the acid in, it drops them both down together. Okay. Again, each pool is different. There's 100 opinions out there, but what works for my pool is what I'm going to tell you, and my pool's pretty clean. I do have a little calcium. Let's not tell you. We've got a little calcium on the top, but again, it's a bear to deal with. Arizona is a very tough state for water chemistry. It really is. It's a booger to keep intact. Any questions so far? We going all right? You ready for the filter? All right. Let me get our deal here. Sorry, folks. We're just trying to let me get down here so we can give the full audience a view here. Okay, so here's our filter, and again, it's just like anything else. I highly recommend. This is the biggest, probably, reason why the performance of your pool goes away, the clarity of your pool goes away. This is by far the biggest scenario. You definitely want to make sure these filters are clean. I highly recommend about every 3 months, 3 to 4 times a year, give or take, right? So about every 3 months of cleaning this filter, okay? The first thing you want to do when cleaning this filter is, of course, turn the pump off. Make sure everything's off. Again, if you don't know how to manually turn the pump off, always hit the breaker. The breaker is just like anything else. It'll kill the power of the equipment while you're taking this apart. So for starters, make sure the power's off or at least the pump's off, and you'll know if the pump's on or off, okay? The second thing is you want to open this air relief here at the very top, and you're just going to twist this just to the left a little bit. And what that'll do is that's going to leave or allow all the air that's trapped inside this filter to go out, okay? Once you have the air, you're going to start to hear this air coming out of the very top. Once that happens, what I start to do, and I took this apart because sometimes this can be a little bit of a bear while I'm showing you. But basically, this band clamp goes right here in the center, okay? So first and foremost, you're going to get a 7/8 socket or just a regular pair of pliers or a monkey wrench, whatever, crescent wrench. I recommend a socket. One, it's faster, and you won't chew up this. This is, brass, and it'll round it off a little bit, if you use regular pliers. Then, the more you round it, the tougher it's going to be to get off. So a 7/8 socket, deep socket, if you have one, works a hell of a lot better, okay? So what you'll do is, we've got the equipment off, you're going to release the air out of the top of the filter, and then you're going to start on taking this and that off, okay? Again, this just spins off completely. All right, let's see if we can keep in this video here. So this is going to spin completely off, all the way out. You're going to have a 3-piece or 4-piece here. And then basically, once you've got that nut off, this clamp is just going to pop itself off like so. You're going to take your clamp, put it aside, okay? Now, what you'll notice is you actually have 4 pieces here, okay? There's two washers, one large, one small. It's super simple. Basically, this is going to go on to the nut first. You've got your spring, and then you have your small washer, okay? So basically, that's your assembly, okay? So just to put it back on. So now that you have the actual air out of the top, you've got the clamp off of the center of this filter. You're just simply going to take the top off just like so, okay? We'll put that to the side. So now you have your 4 filters here. At the very top of this is just called the manifold. And what this is primarily here for is so as the water comes through the filters, okay, if this wasn't here on top, the water would just go right in the center of the filter and you would never be able to filter your water. Okay, so this is a key part here. So you're just going to, sometimes these can be in here pretty tight. something you can, kind of pop it out of there, maybe a screwdriver, whatever you want to use to pop these out of here. Sometimes you'll be able to just grab it and pop it out. But if they're pretty tough, I would recommend finding something to kind of wedge each one out, then take it off, because you'll end up snapping the plastic, okay? So this assembly comes right off like so, all one piece. If this spring, for some reason, does what it just did for me, it's all a separate piece. The spring needs to just face up. What that spring does is when the lid comes on top of here, it kind of keeps this snug on top of the filters, okay? Does that make sense? So I'm going to put this to the side, and then you just have your regular old filters, just like so. Okay, what I recommend, this is what I do at my home. I simply take these out just like so, and I lean them all on my fence. Okay, then what I do is I'll just take a regular garden hose, nothing special, just with a regular spray nozzle, and I simply just go from head to toe with the spray. Now, what I found is you'll get a lot more debris if you go up and down with it rather than side to side. But if side to side is working for you, go with it. You know what I mean? But what I found is I kind of dig in there more. And then when I'm washing it, I actually will take my thumb while I'm doing it and just kind of spread the pleat a little bit so I can kind of get inside here. Okay. The cool thing about this filter is they're a fiber. They're not as much as a paper. With paper, it tends to mat the debris inside the filter element. These come off with pretty good ease. So the debris just kind of peels right off of it. So again, head to toe, flip it upside down, another head to toe, make sure as clean as you possibly can get out. You would be amazed what you get in your pool when you clean these. You're gonna go, damn, I would have never known they got that much dirt in the pool. But believe it or not, these get really dirty. I highly recommend, again, every 3 months, okay? Again, head to toe, doesn't matter the orientation of these. If you have, for some reason, you've cleaned these really well and you still see them pretty brown, you can use a degreaser. Some people, they'll fill up like a garbage can with water, put a little simple green degreaser in them, you know what I mean? If you have pets or you got a lot of hair or whatever you have that's jammed in here, drop it in the degreaser, for 30 minutes, pull it out, give it a rinse. Some people I've seen, they'll let it dry first, shake the debris off, and then clean it. There's all kinds of different ways. For me, once I'm cleaning, I don't waste time. I just stick them across the fence, and I'll spray them all down until I damn near get all the dirt out of it. That's just my way, and it's worked for me. I wouldn't recommend any high pressure. You know what I mean? If you have to use something like that, give it some room. Don't get in close because you will tear up these pleats. And that's about it. It's super simple. These should last you, if you're cleaning them right, these should last you 5 years, easy, if you're really maintaining it. But again, this is kind of the engine to the train. If this is dirty, your entire pool starts, your performance goes downhill real quick. So again, basket cleaning, salt cell cleaning, filter cleaning. If you do those, folks, I'm telling you, your life of the pool will last you forever, and things just work. They really work better when things are clean. It's just that simple, okay? The next thing is, when you put these back in, it doesn't matter what orientation they're in, heads up, however you want to do it. One thing I do is, and I'll show you, in the very front, and I don't know if you can see that at home, there's a little inlet to the filter here. You guys see that there? What that does is that's where the water comes in. So what I found is these two tend to get a lot more debris. So what I do is I kind of take these two, side them by themselves, and then when I put them back, I'll put the two in the front and put them in the back of the bag. Just a personal thing. You'd never know the difference. That's just something I do. I've noticed that because this is where the inlet comes in, so you tend to get the most debris stuck on these. Rotate them if you can. It works a hell of a lot better for you. Okay? All right. There is a little screen in the center here. This just pops right off. This is just an internal air bleed. Okay? So what this does is this allows the filter to sift out any unnecessary air that's in the filter. It goes right back out to the pool. If you see a bunch of debris on here, just clean it off real quick, goes back on. If you ever have a filter and this is missing, okay, you need to get a filter back on. Another thing that works really well is a piece of sponge. Push this piece of sponge right down the center of this. It filters the air and it doesn't allow, if this screen is off, debris will go right down that hole, right back to your pool, okay? So you wanna make sure anytime you have this pipe, if this for some reason pops off, make sure this goes back on, okay? Because it will bypass dirt for you. Other than that, you know, if you see this off and you're within the first couple of years, call us, we'll get you a new one. If it's 5 years old and you see this off, you can go to a pool supply store. They have these at random and you'll be able to get you a new one. The last piece I would say that you would have to maintain on this filter is just this O-ring. And here's my thing, and again, it's just my opinion. Again, anywhere you have an O-ring, wherever the O-ring seats has to be clean. And here's why I tell you this. Because you will take this filter apart, you're going to clean these filters, you're going to get it all put back together, and you get a small little dink. Now you got to take it all apart again and re-clean it. So whenever you take this off, the seat where the O-ring sits, right here on the bottom, okay? I also take a quick rag to the top, just right onto the bottom, make sure it's nice and clean, and then wipe this O-ring nice and clean, okay? Here's the big thing for me. I never put lube on these. And if I do, I put a very, very tiny bit. And the reason for that is debris collects on it if you've got a lot of lube on it, okay, for one. Number two is this is a sealed container. It needs to be real tight so it doesn't leak. So if you want to make sure you don't leak, wipe it dry, wipe the seat areas dry, put the lid on together, clamp it nice and tight, you'll be in good shape, okay? Any questions so far? We're all good. Again, it's once you've done this one time, you're gonna go, man, this is easy. It really is. The only thing, again, I'm just putting it exactly back the way I had it. And again, when you put these back in, here comes your rubber mallet again. You know, I'm telling you, the rubber mallet is the way to go. But just bang these back in, make sure they're nice and tight, and you'll have no problem. The biggest thing, you know, I would highly recommend, and this is strictly just for safety. Whenever you're getting, so all I'm doing, filters back in, get the very top put back on, then you're going to slide the top on. One thing on this I would highly recommend is with this filter here, where this lid is, make sure this is turned all the way to the right like so, okay? But you're gonna see where this nozzle is pointing. So orientate this top where you want the water to come out, okay? So what I mean by that is, if you've got it pointing over your pump and motor, you know what I mean? Every time you wanna release air, that water's gonna go right on your equipment. So kind of move this to a wall area or, you know, out of the back side of the equipment, you know, orientate this to where this nozzle is pointing away from the equipment, okay? So once you get the clamp back together, what I highly recommend, and this is just me to you, for you to be safe, is this little clamp assembly, you want to make sure when you tighten the clamp assembly up that these springs touch each other. They compress all the way, okay? One thing I highly recommend too, again with the rubber mallet, okay, is when you're taking this clamp on and you're ratcheting it closed, okay, ratchet, tighten it up, stop for a second, give it a little bang around with your rubber mallet. Again, give it a bang. It helps it seat, tighten it again. Seat, tighten it again. Does that make sense to everybody? Trust me, with a bang clamp, you always want to bang the clamp on. It helps it seat around the filter, tightens it up a lot tighter for you. Okay, so now we've got let's say we've got the clamp back on, we've got the assembly back on. We're going to turn the pool back on now because we want to make sure we get everything back to normal. So what we'll do is we're going to turn our pool pump on, okay? I recommend high speed, just so you know you can really flush this filter out. So then what you're going to do with the pump on, you're simply going to release the air out of the top of the filter again, okay? What's going to happen is when the pump's on, it's going to fill this filter container up with water, pushing the air out of the top of the filter, okay? Once you see water come out of there, give it a quick second, turn it back down, okay? Water shuts off, you're back in operation. Does that make sense? Here's the biggest thing for you, and I want to tell you a story, but I don't because it's a rough story, okay? I had a customer, not a presidential pool, but I believe it was a Shasta pool, but it had nothing to do with the builder or the manufacturer. It was one of these filters. He just didn't get the clamp on right. He turned it on and he was over it, right? And the lid blew off, and it actually took the full top row of teeth out and banged him against the wall. He's lucky to be here today, seriously. And I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm just saying things are under pressure. You know what I mean? Very high velocity of water. Just give yourself a little arm's reach. Even me, when a heater fires up or a filter gets turned on, I always give myself a little bit of room. So kick it on, give yourself a little bit of room, check it out, make sure everything looks good. You know, then you can bleed your air, but you know, don't be on it. Just give yourself a little bit of room from it, bleed it out, but don't be afraid of it. But just know, you know, there's things under pressure here, you know, so just be very careful. And then once you bleed the air, shut it down, stand back, check it out, let it run from it. You'll know if there's an issue because it happens now. It's not going to wait 20 minutes from now to blow off. If it's going to blow off or there's going to be an issue, it's going to happen immediately for you. I'm just telling you this because I would be a disservice to you if I told you that everything's happy and dory when you take these apart. You know, there's some scariness to it, and that's there's a little worry there. But I've been doing this for 16 years. I took 8,000 of these lids off, and I've clamped them back together, never had a problem. So just be careful. You know, nice and tight, bang it, nice and tight. Give it a little bit of distance when you fire it up, but don't be afraid of it because if you're afraid of it, then you'll never get it on. You may not want to tighten it as much. You know what I mean? Get after it, get it tight.
Where do you bang it with the rubber mallet?
Just around the clamp. So let's say here's the assembly. I'll crimp it a little bit, tighten it up, and then I'll bing, 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 tighten, bing, 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 tighten, you know, a couple times until I get it nice and seated. That's all you need to do. All right, folks, I'm sorry. I wish I had 4 or 5 hours with you, but we burned an hour up. Any questions that I can answer for you? I'm sorry again if I didn't go over a specific thing with you, but again, I'm giving you what I see. I'm giving you just the direct layman term type scenario, and I hope that helps. And again, if you've learned one thing today, that's all I'm asking you to learn. But if you have any questions for us, we're here. We're support for you. You know, I don't care if your pool's in warranty or out of warranty or 20 years old. If you've got a question, call us. We're going to try and give you the best case scenario answer we can, or at least we'll help you to most degree. Or you know, so don't feel uncomfortable to call it. We are here. We've got an emergency line if something happens. Go to the books. My picture's in there. It's not the best picture, but I'm working on that, folks. But anyway, thank you for being here. I really do appreciate it. Any questions you have?
That's a quick question that's unrelated to me.
Yeah.
How do you get the lights to stay the same color?
I got the perfect thing for you. You have the smaller lights?
Yes.
You do? Okay, perfect. I'll get with you right now. I got a perfect card. Anybody else having troubles with their lighting? Let me get with you right here. Any other questions? We learn a little something?
We do.
I get you a good muffin at least, you know?
Want to mention the reset real quick?
Hey, real quick, you know what's, this gentleman brought up a really good point. On this pump, if you ever have a power problem on the pump, okay, there is a reset button on this particular panel on the pump. And here's the crazy thing is most people don't know that they even have this panel here. But on the back of the pump, this little panel pops up, okay? And it's a full display back here. Now, the only thing you can do, unless you're running everything from here, we do have some pools, you turn your pool on from here, the pump turns itself on from here, but most of you guys probably don't have that, okay? But on this keypad, if you have a power outage or something when you turn your pump on and for some reason the pump doesn't get going right away, it will sense a problem on this actual display. Okay, normally it's just a power problem. It's a power failure problem. But if you ever have a problem where the pump's not kicking back on, or you're turning it on but you're not hearing anything coming out of the pump, just make sure if you pop this open and there's a little screen, you actually see a display here, hit this little reset button. That will re-engage this drive and kick the pump back on for you. It's a great point. It's good to know. It's just a little reset button. Very rarely will it happen to you, but if it does, it's really good to know there is a little reset button. Okay? Any questions? We doing all right, onliners? Any questions from the online? Everybody's happy, all right?
I have one question.
Yeah.
If you turn the circuit breaker off, do you have to reset all your settings?
No, there's a backup battery. It's a 2032 battery, just the normal garage door type. It's a 2032 battery. It's just the flat, small ones, but they generally last 6 to 8 hours. You know what I mean? Okay. Depending on how long the battery lasts, but you'd have to you'd be a lot more concerned by you'd be refrigerators and stuff like that that you're worried about. You know what I mean? But you do have that backup capability, so you can kill the power for an hour and have no problem. Once you kick it back on, all the programs will reside. So, you got it. All right, folks. Again, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul.
Set the breaker off and let everything.